further ado, I will welcome up Jason and Rex. Thank you.
Hello, welcome everyone. Great to have you here on a beautiful day. I'm down from San Francisco. It's a little bit sunnier here, although pretty nice weather in SF too. And Jason, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Good to see everybody.
Two really big transitions underway. One, I think AI is redefining what types of services advisors can deliver for their clients. And two, there's a big generational wealth transfer with 100 trillion plus of assets between now and 2050 transitioning from boomers to the next generation. I want to talk about both those trends and how Altruist fits into that. But first, let's start with your new announcement today and Hazel and its capabilities.
Sure. Well, it technically launched yesterday, so my colleagues did. This is part of the AI demos Sunday late afternoon. But yeah, super stoked. This is our first ever standalone product that's outside of the Altruist ecosystem, so it can be used by any advisor. And our perspective on building AI tools is to try to think about, I often refer to as jobs to be done. So what are the things that you're paying someone to actually do? And I think the first tools that were made available to advisors that had obvious impact were things like note-taking, but that's not really a job you'd hire somebody to do. Like that might be a component of a job, right? So like normally a great assistant's doing a lot more. So they're cleaning up your inbox, maybe already drafting responses to prospects, clients, vendors. They're managing your calendar. They're helping you get ready for meetings. They're helping you with plans. They might even be like 150, 160 IQ experts on lots of things, and you can just ask them anything, and they can give you answers to that too. So Hazel's essentially a lot of those things as its V1, and then we'll be adding like very specific para-planning, investment analysts, things like that, additional kind of jobs to be done, so that it could enable theoretically like a very small team to do what today might be like a 20-person team worth of work.
Yeah, and you talk about, in terms of the capabilities, you both need intelligence to be able to do a lot of these tasks, but you also need context. So what are some of the things that context within the Altruist platform unlocks for Hazel?
Yeah, I think I'm sure there's many people here that might debate me on this, but since I'm only with a mic right now, I guess I can say what I want. But I would say that I think the custodian is the ultimate system of record, and for AI to be highly functional, it needs to have both access to data, and then it needs to have great context. The example I often give is that it doesn't matter what you wrote down on your yellow legal pad. If a client passes away, the money goes to who the beneficiaries are assigned with at the custodian. And that same is true with any other piece of software that you have. Like whatever it says in those things becomes highly irrelevant if that's not what it actually says, right? So the titling of the accounts, the beneficiaries, the calculations of things like RMDs and inherited RMDs. Like there's just so many things that you really need that custodial data. And then if you want to go even a layer deeper, if you want things like lot level, cost basis around securities, and so I think there's a lot of stuff there. There's also the connectivity to many other tools, and custodians by default are oftentimes connected to most all of the other tools an advisor uses. So CRM, financial planning, etc. And then I think context is like really interesting. There's context you can pre-build into AI systems. This is things like prompt contexting, which can kind of sit in the background, so you don't have to like rewrite that prompt every time. But those prompts, like those behind-the-scenes kind of built-in context, kind of protocols, they get better with a lot of usage. So you need to have many thousands, tens of thousands of users using these things across hundreds of thousands, ideally millions of different, meetings, and you start to be able to build incredibly high accuracy. And this is why I think you find highly specialized AI models that actually are close to 100% accurate already in areas like tax and legal. And this is kind of the same construct that we're trying to think about with Altruist. And I think, again, a custodian is in a unique position to be able to help enable that, to make the model really, really good.
Yeah, and also the system, not just of intelligence, context, but also action, because it has to be updated at the custody level.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think on the action side, I've had like some,
and that's early. Like we're probably not ready to turn over all of the actions to like make this happen.
Well,
quite yet.
I think you can get really close, and so. Like data will oftentimes be fed into systems through connectors, which are often referred to as MCPs, and but actually, most actions will be taken. So data will come in one way. Most actions will be taken via APIs still, and I think that there's a handful of other custodians that have the ability to kind of take delivery of an action via API and then actually go execute on it. So I think there'll be a few custodians that are much more well suited to kind of work with your broader AI systems, Altruist, but also others. I think Apex will do probably really well here. There may be some others, but I think that's the most obvious name that comes to mind. So the things you could do, like again, just a simple example. Imagine you have a meeting with a client. Actually, I'll give a real life example. So like, so those who don't know, I still have roughly 8, might be 9, I can't remember, but 8 or 9 clients, right? And I caught up with one the other day.
That 9th client is very upset right now.
Well, some of them are like where it's like a family where it's multiple generations. So I don't know if do you call them one family or now that those kids are adults, are they two? But nonetheless,
you gotta pass.
Yeah. So the client she had power of attorney because her husband had advanced stages of Alzheimer's. And so she was trying to figure out kind of like, specifically it was around RMDs. What is the RMD? What's the best way to take this RMD? What's my husband's RMD? What's my RMD? And what's really powerful about AI is AI has sort of infinite memory, right? So we have a decade plus of notes and context. And so all the stuff that her husband can no longer remember, Hazel remembers. Like, it has all of that information. So it's very easy for Hazel to actually come up with, here's how things have been done in the past. Like, here's how we'd recommend this. Here's what the RMD is. Now, where you could actually take action on that is when Hazel will be able to very soon, like within probably, I don't know, maybe 60 days or so, it'll be able to say, hey, Rex, like based on that meeting you just had, I went ahead and queued up in the conversation that the client wanted to take that RMD, they wanted to spread it out pro rata, over the rest of this year, and then automatically next January just set it up to be every month automatic. So I went ahead and did that for you. It's waiting, and you can just click approve, and then it will be done, right? And so, whereas a lot of AI today, it creates to-do lists. So it's like just tells you here's all the stuff you have to do, but then it doesn't actually do the thing or do most of the work for you. So I think like the next evolution is you get to like a very true co-pilot, and you're just approving actions. And then eventually, within some amount of time, and it could be sooner, it could be many years, that comfort and quality reaches a point where you could fully automate it. Although I don't think that's happening in the next 12 months.
Yeah, we've got some time there. I'm curious what you're seeing, though, because you guys support about 5,000 advisors, how they're using AI and how that's starting to change their jobs. Could you imagine a future where the role of a financial advisor radically changes, but we aren't quite there yet? But how is it changing today with some of these new tools?
Yeah. I mean, so the actual practical stuff, I think a lot of us like to talk about all of the flying cars that don't exist yet. But the actual real stuff, real examples, I'd say, if you're not using a meeting assistant, I think that's like one of the most obvious areas you can just immediately reclaim time. It's better quality. The automated follow-up, it will genuinely, once you use it and a client gets that email, 30 seconds after the meeting's done, and it feels really personal and real, and it was written really really well, like as though you actually wrote it. And the client writes you back and just thanks you profusely because they just don't know where they'd be without you, and like how much they appreciate your guidance. Like that really happens right now. And I think not doing that is a real disservice and leaving people behind. So that's a very low hanging fruit. Compliance tools, I don't know if I should say it or not say it publicly, but Altruist just switched 100% of our entire compliance program to Hadrius. And it's a massive improvement and a massive cost savings. So massively better and cheaper and everything in every way better than what we were doing prior. Now, there might be other tools out there that are great too. So I'm not just plugging just them, but I'd say these are areas where we've had long-standing legacy softwares that are probably pretty rent-seeking in their way. They haven't really evolved. They're expensive, clunky, cumbersome, maybe even downright painful to use. And you can pretty rapidly build, AI products that can solve a lot of those pain points. So I think, again, compliance will be one of those areas that already people are getting a lot of lift from. Obviously, content creation. We have a lot of content creators here. I think it's, whether it's editing of videos, so post-production work or ideation. So there's lots of simple, real things people are using it for right now. And then there's, I think, these, interesting ideas that are maybe more vaporware and a Figma prototype than they are actual real software is being implemented at scale for lots of people.
Yeah. And yeah, talk about your own experience at Altruist as a company using AI internally, whether it's tools you build yourself or some of these external tools like Hadrius.
Yeah, so we have near 100% adoption of ChatGPT Enterprise for like the whole company. So almost no matter what your job is, if it's like helping me create a meeting agenda, helping me draft product requirements, like that's happening, almost 100% adoption. And our product and engineering teams, roughly 40% of all code at Altruist is either written by or assisted by AI, primarily using Claude Code and for prototyping a lot of V0. So these are some tools that we use. The prototypes that our team can build are so insanely good that you'd think they're real products, and it's like literally just a product designer and a product manager who are non-technical, non-developers, building like highly clickable prototypes that look like real products. There's maybe not a hooked up back end to it, but this allows you to build and test much faster, kind of within market. So kind of you get really quick feedback loops, yeah. So those are some things we're using for. I mean, like the efficiency gains. I mean, I think there's probably a fair bit of speculation on what those could be, but it's quite material. I mean, if someone just looks at like our LinkedIn, like our headcount has actually slowly declined over the past 18 months versus increased, even though the business is up something like 300%. And a lot of that is, maybe it's great people and, good systems, but a meaningful contribution is AI.
And what teams have you personally seen decrease as a result of some of these efficiencies? Or is it more broad-based?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say almost every area of the business. I mean, so like, if you think about like our business, we have everything from software design, software engineering, design, QA, product management, support, clearing operations, compliance, legal. I mean, literally nothing is immune. So I think like this, like every now and again when I hear advisors say like, there's the radical examples. Like my good friend Fahad at Range will say, AI is taking all of the jobs. That might be a bit extreme. And then there's the folks who are like, there's no way AI will ever take my job. And like the reality is probably somewhere in the middle, where some percentage of like every industry there's quartiles of performers. So there's like there's a bottom quartile in this industry, and reasonably good chance like that's not necessary. AI will be better, or it will just augment the good people so much that they'll be able to take on more work if they want. And that happens in every occupation. I think some areas will by default have a lot higher attrition, but I've yet to see one where like a professional service anyway, or like a technology company where you could make an argument, outside of like like cleaning the office or something, right, where it's not impacted. Yeah.
I'm curious who else you're watching in the industry, like your competitors. Like, do you see Schwab and Fidelity doing interesting things with new product, with new release? Maybe this is too much of a layup, but maybe they are doing.
I see. Where are their boots? Yeah, they're doing some DocuSigns and stuff like that. I think. I don't know. I haven't used them in a while, but so yeah, no on those names. But I'd say no. There's definitely people doing like really interesting things. I think it's cool for me to see even companies that they've kind of had their kind of reinventions. I don't know if my friends from Vise are here, but Samir and Runic, like their product's far better today than it ever was. And I think they actually originally were an AI company, and then they kind of had to pull back because the market wasn't ready. And I think now the market's ready. I think on the platform side of the business, I mean, like there's a bunch of great platforms here, at Future Proof. And my suspicion, again, I don't know, like, if anyone wants to volunteer their entire product roadmap to me, I'm more than happy to have a look. Most people won't, but so I'm only speculating here. But I have to imagine like everybody building anything of any meaning and consequence is probably taking a bit of like an AI first mentality. If they're not, there's a good chance they won't be sponsoring in 2 or 3 years, because I think they're going to be left behind.
Yeah, and I know we all laughed about the Fidelity Schwab thing as a bit of a layup, but also it's like they have trillions of assets in the custody layer, and no one thinks they're doing anything, which is kind of a crazy idea.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not here to throw barbs necessarily, but I would say that if you have a business where it's just working really well, like let's just say hypothetically, you have no motivation to change it because the money just keeps coming in, then why would you change, right? Now, especially if you have a business with multiple lines of business and you have other lines of business that generate a lot more revenue, have faster payback. Right, so like the consumer businesses is where you would, like all of us, if we were just being honest, although we maybe wish that everyone was 100% focused on advisors only, that'd make all of our lives way easier. The reality is that if you have a 3 or 4 lines of business, you're going to look at, okay, where can I allocate capital and get the most desirable return? And the advisor business is far less revenue. It has actually relatively high operating costs. And to be honest, like, I don't think advisors know this, but the advisors are part of the problem, right? Like calling a desk, like calling a support desk to be like, oh, hey, I just wanted to catch up and, like see how that check deposit that I mailed last week's going, right? Like you don't think about that, but that action, that micro action times, 35,000 firms times, $8 trillion of assets might create 2 or 3 basis points of OpEx. And the gross margins and EBIT margins aren't there, and so the custodian says, I'm going to go put my dollars over in this other line of business where I get a bigger return. And so I think that yes, I don't see a ton of innovation in the advisor divisions, but it's not because like they hate advisors, right? It's just like their other businesses are better businesses for them, and so it's hard to justify making massive, kind of capex investments in like the advisor infrastructure. So that's part of it. The other part is just like the bigger a code base becomes, especially a monolith code base, even companies that got addicted to microservices and they are like, I've got 4,000 microservices. Like, I'm here to tell you, that's a terrible idea too. So lots of like microservices are bad. Like, there's probably some small manageable surface layer of cloud-enabled services. This allows you to actually build really good technology that evolves really smart over time. And if you over-index one way, like again, like one big massive code base, which is what almost every old financial services company has, it's incredibly hard to ever change it. And so you get stuck in a place where even if you wanted to innovate, it's nearly impossible because you're supporting 30 or 40 million accounts and trillions of transactions and trillions of dollars. And so these are the reasons why eventually companies, they'll innovate to a place that they no longer can really innovate, and it's a lot easier to kind of turn a bit into like, again, I'll call it a rent seeker, but hey, business is good, too hard to change, inertia's there, advisors aren't going to move, so therefore why would I make big investments there? That only lasts for so long until eventually those businesses start to decline, and then at which point it's almost too late, right? And then kind of the music ends.
And as you think about Altruist product roadmap, what are the things that you're thinking about and prioritizing the most so you don't hit that plateau? And maybe one way to attack that would be, what are the things you're hearing from your clients, the advisors, that they're most interested in you building out for their clients?
Yeah, so we have an awesome advisor community. I look out and I see a bunch of friends, which is really cool. From day one at Altruist, we embedded an ideas tab into our product, and it allowed the actual users to go in and tell us, this is what we'd like to see. And then it's everybody can see those things. It's just sort of a crowdsourced, ideas board, if you will. So you could upvote, you could add a comment. This allows our product and engineering teams to hear what people are asking for, build prototypes, and actually get them in front of the people who are kind of the loudest voices asking for something, and kind of co-create the platform. So I think we've got north of 500 features that were features that advisors told us to build, and it's probably getting closer to 1,000 than it's to a 500 now. So I think these things change over time. I think like at this very moment, everybody, some things never change, so technology might be something. Advisors, I've been doing this for a long time, and they still want the same 2 things, Rex. They want to make more money and work less hours, or both, right? And so that's basically what people are asking for, is like, help me find ways. And it doesn't mean like it's because they're greedy. It could be, hey, I want to be able to serve more people. Maybe they want to provide more value to their clients. So it's not like any like 2 or 3 killer features. It's like, it's all of the things that allow you to have more time in the day, and be able to provide more value to your clients. And ideally those things, sort of metastasize in such a way that you now make more money and work less hours. Right?
Yeah. And how do you think about looping in things that used to be a little bit adjacent to the core advisor workflow and offering things like taxes and estate planning and maybe more complex legal matters getting pulled into, because clients are asking for more stuff, and now AI makes it like easier to maybe tackle some of the legal things, tackle some of the tax things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I think so. First, I just rewind and say, like, in spite of all the technology that exists, like, my general advice to most people is if you can operate with an extreme level of focus and sustain it for an uncomfortably long amount of time, that's probably your recipe for a lot of success. And it's boring and not sexy and exciting, so most people won't do it, which is why most people are not successful. Failure is more common than is success. Even if failure equals like still a pretty good life, but meaning like there's just a very vast delta, right? And that's okay. So I would try not to get shiny object syndrome and build a 40 different vendor tech stack or something. But if you have a very specific type of client and you can provide more value, so if it's natural that your client should have estate planning, which I think most people should have, then you should think about, like, there's, I think, at least 2 vendors here. So Vanilla and Wealth.com, I mean, I would be checking them out, right, and seeing if that makes sense for your client base, both with great AI features enabled. I don't know if April's here, but like there's some, that's a tax, kind of automation platform that has an advisor kind of facing tool. So literally like income tax, ongoing analysis, recommendations, and tax preparation. So I do think that, look, this has not been news, but to justify fees staying at a certain price, over time, advisors have historically been adding more and more services. The beautiful thing is now you should be able to do that without actually incurring a lot more time or having to hire a lot more people. Like, you can kind of put these AI agents to work for you and start to actually provide these adjacent services so the clients are getting a very comprehensive view. And I would also say don't sleep on the fact that, like, AI paraplanner, I know what we're building, and hopefully there's competition. I think like competition, it brings out the best really for advisors and their clients. But to me, even very basic things like every client should have every single insurance document reviewed, every single type of risk should be analyzed, and like nobody really wants to go review a property and casualty insurance, policy to ensure that somebody's, car insurance and renter's insurance and whatever other insurances like all line up and are appropriate. And these are things that AI will be able to just do. They'll just create that scale for every client to have all of those vectors of really great proactive planning just done for you automatically at a very high quality. And so I think that this, super advisor that can do almost like family office type of oversight could theoretically be enabled by just an advisor with the right 2 or 3 sort of AI agents, if you will.
And I think, there's an interesting opportunity for advisors to do a lot more than they ever have without it being, to your point, too much work.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not quite there yet. So
well, some things are here, like, and you can do really, really well with them right now. Other things are coming, and I'm not the first, I'm sure, to say this, and maybe even here in the last 40 hours or so, but If we all do our jobs well, like the tools you have at this very moment are the worst versions of them you will ever have, right? So whether it's a platform business like Altruist, this is the worst you'll ever see it. It will only get better and better. And those who have seen it, see that it gets better every 2 weeks with every single release. We'll probably start moving into continuous releases, so it'll start getting better literally daily. The AI models, the context, the amount of compute, the amount of available energy, like all of these things are at their lowest points that you'll likely see for the rest of your life. So they will only get better, and some will compound at 3 or 4 times like a normal Moore's law like rate of change here. So I'm very encouraged that like things are actually pretty darn good right now. Like if I was in private practice, I think I could get by with like literally 0 employees and build a $1 billion firm in probably 3 years or less. I'm pretty confident, right? If somebody wants to do that, you can do that right now. The tools are available, and they will only get better over these next few years. So it's a super exciting time to go be building.
If you're an ambitious person starting a firm
as
an RIA, like now's an amazing time to do it. Deliver incredible client service without
never been easier. Yeah, and markets are high, so it's like doing it 25 years ago was really hard. Technology sucked, and the market was like 20% of what it is today. So everybody should be very grateful.
Jason would love to help you do it at Altruist. Another thing I want to talk to is some surprising just inefficiencies that always drive me nuts about the in and around wealth, which sometimes has to do with how platforms are broken. maybe we just start with one really simple one, which is just account onboarding and transfers in, like what the current state is, what it looks like on Altruist. But then I also want to get into things like cash management, as well as just the need for fractionalization of shares further down the account ladder.
Yeah, I mean, so again, another kind of easy one. We'll go kind of quick here, but yeah, if a teenager can do something on their phone in 30 seconds, and you have to log in, download forms, complete, like, do some weird, like, field mapping or some exercise, right, to fill them out, then send them to the client an envelope for them to sign it. Like, I could keep going on with how, like, nonsensical actually most of the things are done in this industry. But if that's the divide here, right, we've got a bit of a problem here. So you should that should be solved. And that's just like a very minor thing. It actually only really impacts high growth firms. So if you're a slow growth firm, you probably don't care because you're not really onboarding a lot of people. But if you're a high growth firm, these things are very painful. Once you reach some level of scale, automation around things like cash management are insanely important, not just for driving great benefit to client. One of the things, my friend Max Lane's here somewhere, but whether he knows or not, I often say internally at Altruist, I'm like, between what we have and what they have in high yield cash is sort of an insult to all of our clients. Like, every advisor should be using high yield cash programs. Yeah. We know because when you open a brokerage account at Altruist and your client connects their bank account via Plaid, we get to see the tens of billions of dollars that advisors are letting their clients leave in a Chase bank account or a Wells Fargo or B of A or whatever, earning 0.01%. Why are they not helping their clients get this free money, if you will? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever.
It's crazy. It's crazy how many, trillions of dollars, quite literally.
And that's just like that's like just the reserve cash. Then there's like, if you don't have fractional shares, there's like this whole laundry list of negatives to your clients. Whether it's idle cash in accounts that creates cash drag, or it's just low yields in general. I mean, there's a lack of ability to do the most after-tax efficient investing possible. So there's like this whole slew of infrastructure layer problems, ironically, they're solvable right now. Like, we do all these things for the most part right now. But there is one problem, and the problem is inertia. Like, advisors are like, hey, I get my 1% fee, even though it's not, like, maybe it's not best for my clients, but I'm gonna find 100 excuses as to why I'm gonna leave it where it is, just to justify why I'm not going to go to the client and do the right thing that drives the better outcome. But these things are going to change over I think the next few years. I mean, like, it'll all of a sudden become very hard to defend, like, not optimizing cash, not optimizing portfolios, not optimizing after-tax yields. And frankly, clients will start being the reasons. Like, there'll be a generation of clients that will come along with enough knowledge of how things should work that they'll start asking tough questions. And the tough questions could be things like, why am I not using fractional
Why can't
shares?
I do this on my phone?
I mean, they're going to see the ads for Freck, and they're going to be like, why is Freck doing this, but you're doing this, right? Doing that, right? And I don't know what people are going to answer with. They're going to have some excuse as to why they're not doing it, but if they don't know Freck, they're doing direct indexing with fractional shares directly to consumers at a really low price point. And I think they're doing reasonably well. And there's going to be more and more of these things, and you're just going to get tough questions. And this might take a decade, or it could take 2 decades. For this kind of change of like expectation from clients, but it will certainly happen. So, I would much rather. My view is like I want to build for that future because it's better for clients anyway. And the good news is the RIA segment, like that's where we live in. I know there's other types of advisors, but these advisors, I think, by and large, like have that same hell-bent, like, fiduciary focus. Like, I went independent so that I had the option to choose what's best for my clients. And so that's why that's the only segment we live in. I think it's been a good marriage so far.
Yeah. And you've also moving from the breakaway segment and the independent segment and moving up market. So what's changed about Altruist, the firm, and also about your capabilities that has allowed you to change the kinds of advisors you support?
Yeah, I mean, I think so the common thread with advisors we work with are that they tend to be forward-thinking and they tend to be client-centric. Which usually leads to them being high growth, right? So if you think about those 3 things, I'd say that it doesn't matter if you're brand new, just starting. Like we've now seen a number of firms that we meet with basically, I don't know, like $0 to $50 million in assets, and now they're 500 million to multiple billions, all organic growth, just killing it. It's so cool to watch, and so. that doesn't matter if you're a big enterprise or if you're a startup. Like again, if you're forward thinking. Forward thinking usually means like, I don't believe I know everything already. I think there's more to learn in this world. I'm excited to continue learning and getting better for my clients. Sort of the atomic habits in real life of being an advisor, getting better every day. And then I think there's the client centricity, which is like, hey, even though there's maybe a way I've done things the last 10 years, I'm objectively finding there's maybe a better way to do things, and I want that for my clients, right? And those two things, you put them together, you get a pretty high growth firm. So what I've said is like the larger firms that come to Altruist, they just, it's more about readiness. I think they're like, okay, you've been around long enough, you're sufficiently large, you're well capitalized, and they've always been this shared ethos. Like they've always been the same as like the advisors that were early adopters. So some things have changed, but honestly, not a whole lot.
And cool. Should we be paying attention to any other announcements from Altruist while we're here? Or actually, we should take some questions from the audience as well, too.
I don't know. I mean, this timer down here tells me that I think we might be out of time. But what I'd say is, since until they cut the mic off, I'd say like, come by booth. We have Doug and Heather Bonaparte from Bonafide Wealth doing a book signing launch at our booth this afternoon. So please come by, say hi. And then tomorrow I'm having a really fun conversation with none other than downtown Josh Brown at the Altruist booth. So check the agenda, come hang out. There may or may not be some fun things that we talk about, and I'm excited for that one too. Otherwise, thanks everybody for hanging. You're the best there is.
Great. Thanks,
Those
Jason.
who don't know, by the way, Rex was, I think, the first investor that really believed in Altruist. I mean, like majorly believed, like in the very early days. So anyways, it's been fun 7 years.
Little biased, but yeah, great.
Little biased.
Doing great work.
Yes. Keep it up. All right, thanks everybody.